Good afternoon. Natural remedies for swollen gums. I'm Jerry, and
I'm Gerald.
I have the pleasure of introducing my son, who is a nationally licensed paramedic. And I asked him to come on the show today because there is a lot of things he has encountered in his work for the last 10 years. And I'm excited to have him bring some of his extensive knowledge to the table, and he loves to talk about natural remedies as well. So today, natural remedies for swollen gums. A lot of this has to do with improper hygiene and proper care of the gums, and you end up with problems. But okay, we're talking about what to do about it. What would be something that comes to mind for you?
Maintenance. I find that a lot of the times when I deal with patients in the field, I'm dealing with a very late progression of whatever it is. Very late. In fact, to the point they call 911 and say, this is no longer something I can handle. Please get me out of this situation and into the care of a physician. And so it's probably a really good case of people ignoring warning sign after warning sign after warning sign. And gums, as part of my physical assessment, when you're a paramedic, you immediately are responsible for everything that you see. And when you see something, you have to make a judgment call as to what to do with it and how to treat it and what to do next and how best to get them safely from point A to point B. So for what Challenge Life Better allows you to do is get really in control or recognize all those warning signs and all the stuff for maintenance that you can do up until the point where you have to say, all right, I'm in over my head, call 911 because this is crazy. So
have you run into situations regarding mouth situations or gums? You have.
Yes. Yes. So it goes everything from infections to trauma to, and so you either go typically medical or trauma. And so it changes your approach. And so when you get on scene for a 911 call, you have to make a judgment call. And a lot of people in the field call it stay and play or blank and get. So you can rhyme that for yourself.
Wow. I can't imagine some of the things I was thinking of traffic accidents and various other things, but we're tending to look only at the situations today of somebody that would write in to us and ask, what do I do about this? And let's go over, as far as the maintenance, there's a lot of things that you can start doing proactively on a daily basis, aside from just brushing properly. I really think that people nowadays should and can afford a very simple electric toothbrush because it's a lot better than trying to do it by hand. Okay, so you're having bleeding gums, you're having problems. Okay, that's gingivitis. Let's talk about how to put out the fire. One of the things that I do for my clients and my patients here in my clinic is that I will take people aside, look at the situation and say, look, I think that health-wise, if I were in this situation, I would probably use a mixture of 50% colloidal silver, say about 20 parts per million, and something that would be similar to what is the foaming hydrogen peroxide. Sorry, the hydrogen peroxide material mixed with that tends to be a really great mouthwash. And I've had really great success in people using that 3 times a day and rinsing and holding it in their mouth as long as they possibly can and then spitting it out. And after about a week, one of the first things they tell me, and people who really have gum problems a lot of times have cowpox in the mouth. They'll have these holes in the lining of the cheeks and everything. It burns like heck. So I think that has been traced back to a cowpox virus a long time ago. If I'm mistaken, everybody still knows what I'm talking about, these little lesions that form in the mouth. And after about a week, those are pretty well gone when you use this form of treatment. So that's something I think is really important. Now, also, if you are starting to have a lot of infection there, then you need to boost your immune system. And I think a lot of times to get the immune system boosted, one of the best things you can do is immediately start 100 billion units of probiotics for your improvement of your gut bacteria, and at least 30 strains of bacteria that are part of that 100 billion. Get started on that. And I've had a lot of success where people tell me almost within a week they start to feel better all over, because they were, when they go to the bathroom, they're putting out rabbit pellets instead of properly, doing their business in the bathroom. And that's an indication that their gut is really in bad shape. And now you're dealing with an infection in the mouth. And the problem is, if you don't clear up the problem with swollen gums and gingivitis, you start losing teeth, and you still don't do anything about it. We're talking about an infection that can end up in the heart. I know it did for my own father, and for Gerald's grandfather. It was horrendous, and he ended up losing his life because of it. It's really bad.
So do you recommend involving a systemic approach in general maintenance up in the body, and then you approach locally?
Absolutely. I think you should hit it from every direction.
Okay.
It's, if you ignore the gut, you're ignoring a very powerful ally to come along and help fight these bad bacteria that have taken over in the gum. Some of these may be rampant in the actual gut itself, and that's why you have constipation and other problems. A lot of people who have this kind of problem have a lot of other problems that seem to flow through the body after you have serious problems with your mouth.
So systemically, we're looking for things that are inflammatory. We're looking for things that promote, you have to deal with things that are inflammatory. You can be dealing with things that are suppressive. You can be dealing with things that are depressive, in a way that you're taking things into your body that are repressing or depressing other systems.
That's right.
That inhibit your digestion and or your ability to move things along, to get things flowing. And so
that's right.
You say hydration is a good one?
I think hydration is fantastic.
I know hydration is a good one.
Absolutely. I've seen one person come into this clinic out of hundreds of people I've dealt with over the last several years. The people have come here, only one person I saw that was actually overhydrated. And this dear lady was in well excess of 250 pounds, and yet she would only take in about 900 calories a day.
Do you mean she was overhydrated in a way that she was constantly taking in fluids and not feeling satisfied?
She took in so much, 2 gallons a day, to the point that wiped out her electrolytes, which left her almost immediately still thirsty.
Oh.
And she could not get to the point where she had enough to drink. And I looked at her and I said, okay, I'm just so fat. And I said, I don't think you're fat. I think you're a water balloon.
No.
Okay, now we need to let the water out, okay?
Did she have a problem with edema?
She had a lot of problems with that. She had all kinds of distress in her body. And so basically, she wanted some kind of pill or something. I said, no, here's what we do. From now on, for as long as you can stand it, I don't want you doing more than 5 or 6 glasses of water a day. She was doing 256 ounces a day. And if she was a proper weight of about 150 pounds, she should have been doing 75 or so, maybe 80.
What was her urine?
Ounces.
What was her urine out? Did she tap into tell you? I mean, I don't
No,
want
I didn't.
go into
I didn't
details
look at that. I
involved.
just looked at the situation and said, back off from the water intake.
Oh.
If you don't do anything else at all, back off from the water intake. And she said, but I'm still thirsty. And I said, no, you're thirsty now because you wiped away the chemical indicators telling your body, let your body know that they're satiated. You had enough. Okay, you're going to cuss me under your breath for about 2 or 3 weeks because you're going to feel like you're dying of thirst. But all of a sudden, the switch will turn off and you will feel like, gosh, I'm not thirsty anymore. But I said, for the next 3 months, you're going to spend time in the bathroom losing all of this weight. So sure enough, she came back about a year later, it was 160 pounds. And I mean, we're talking about 90 pounds of water. And she said, I drink about 5 glasses a day. And she was just fine. And she's healthy as a horse now. I mean, this girl is something else. And
what was her initial presentation when you first saw her, other than being a little overweight? How was she walking? What was her gait?
Oh,
what was
Lord,
her?
She had difficulty in walking.
Did she have swollen legs?
Everything was puffy. She would jiggle when she walked, and that's what an indicator.
I don't mean having like adipose tissue. I mean like third spacing where she's got fluid. I didn't
see any of the extra where it was ballooning out into tissue. She wasn't drowning at this point yet.
Okay.
But she was, if she'd have kept this up for another 6 months, of course, being a naturopath, I can't say, well, you're going to end up dead if you keep going.
Right.
Which obviously would have been the case. She'd have drowned it in her own tissues.
Frequently, whenever I take care of patients and they've got fluid, what we call fluid overload, I'm looking for all kinds of things that, keep a person from allowing their kidneys to process fluid out and get rid of things. But then I'll also look at their heart, because if their heart is not doing what it should be doing, pumping fluid adequately, either it has a ventricle failure or there's a dissipation in the ability to move against different gradients that are building up in the body. Sometimes we can treat those people with Lasix because the fluid is not being released because of heart defects. And so getting back to the gums, sometimes when I do a physical assessment, I'll look and I'll say, hey, let me have a look at you. And so I have to establish a rapport. I get close to the patient to where I can put hands on them and say, okay, this is what I'm finding and this is what I'd like to do next. One of the things, I look in their mouth. Not every paramedic does. Yeah. Sometimes when I train quite a few people, I say, get an idea of what's going on and establish a rapport by breaking that physical barrier between people. Like we typically talk like this.
Right.
What I recommend is saying, hi, how are you doing? My name is Gerald. I do this and this is what I'm going to do next. And I narrate my actions. And then I say, let me have a look at you. Yeah. And so I'll look. Yes. And I'll shade the eyes, I'll get a pupillary reaction, and I'll say ah. And even if the patient doesn't speak English, which happens sometimes they speak, Farsi. So it's something I've not had practice with. And even in Farsi means even to a child, because you don't have to, you can cross that communication barrier. And so when I see the inside of the mouth and I see inflammation, I'm thinking, what else has been not maintenance? And so sometimes they're heart. And so sometimes what a dentist will tell you is heart defects gum disease can lead to heart defects. Heart disease.
I have to stop you for a moment and just tell you that you can do that. As a naturopath, I am not allowed to practice medicine. Mm-hmm. So I do an evaluation, but I don't write anything down. And I don't tell the patient, well, you look like you're coming down with cancer, or you look like your kidneys are failing.
You have to do a lot of tests.
I have seen things where I knew that there were really, really scary things going on with a person. I've seen blood in the urine and everything else where we were doing Reams tests in order to determine pH of urine and pH of the saliva. But I knew that person's kidneys were burning up, but I could not practice medicine and tell them that. Mm-hmm. I could say I knew why it was happening, because they had gone overboard with their use of of bread and various other things where they had glued their intestines shut and were losing 30 pounds in 6 weeks. I mean, weight was just falling off, and their urine was pink, and they hurt when they urinated. Yet they drank the regular amounts of water, but only urinated once or twice in 24 hours. Everything else came out the other end because the kidneys could no longer process the fluid. And so they had irritable bowel syndrome to the point of
diarrhea.
Once every hour and a half. They actually didn't even have to go urinate anymore because everything just went on through. And their food was doing no good at all. Yet this individual told me when I suggested perhaps they would stop eating cereal grains or various things with heavy gluten, the man looked at me, swore, foul language at me, told his wife, I'm going to eat 3 pieces of bread every meal like I've done it forever, and let's get the blank out of here. This guy's an idiot. That was October, and at the rate he was losing weight, I've not heard from that family since, but I suspect the worst because I don't think he had much time before he was going to be either on dialysis or put in a hospital or worse.
It sounds like
I couldn't say anything.
It sounds like he was ignoring all those warning signs.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's pretty well all we have for talking about swollen gums right now. I will add one other thing. If you think it's a raging infection, you're bleeding, and there's other problems, I would recommend that you consider taking at least 600 milligrams to 1,200 milligrams of a natural material called resveratrol and get that level up in your blood, because resveratrol is a material that is very, very aggressive to infections, and it has the amazing bonus of being really, really good at reducing inflammation.
That's another thing. Let me interject if
Sure.
I could. So I think you've done a great job of establishing the systemic approach.
Okay.
Perhaps locally, what can I do if I have the beginnings of what looks like gingivitis, other than, of course, getting plaque away from the area by flossing,
Yes.
massaging the gum, and increasing blood flow by massage, and then your gums can increase their keratin and their connective tissue properties by that blood flow, which helps them.
And use that mouthwash too.
Let's say I'm beginning to have tooth pain, which could lead to an abscess, like the very beginning where it's like that's not quite right. You could easily go see a dentist, and he could look at it and say, "Well, you should probably floss better," which is I've heard patients start that way. Bless you.
Excuse me.
So right when you've got that local spot, what's a good approach at that moment, other than, of course, going to the dentist and getting maybe an anti-inflammatory or other things that the medical establishment typically tackles first?
Yes.
What would be something right off the bat for a local thing that I want to just put a slow to in a progression?
Well, the only thing I know of, aside from the massage and the proper health maintenance, is really getting at it with the colloidal silver and the hydroperoxide 3 times a day, and then also I would also at least twice a day, morning and evening, and do some oil pulling.
Okay.
Because oil pulling seems to be something that people don't know what that is. It's gross. Be quite honest with you.
Or is that where you keep the oil in your cheek space, and then through muscular pressure you exert that fluid through the teeth, which brings through pressure that substance through the gum line, the interdental area between teeth. Is that right? Is that what
yes, it is. I would use organic coconut oil that's warmed properly, and use that twice a day, morning and evening. And along with the colloidal silver and the hydroperoxide and proper flossing and all this, you're going to see a dramatic turnaround. And if you still have a lot of infection, I would go ahead and get the resveratrol and kick that in too, because in the 100 billion units of probiotic, this is so serious, can be so serious, that you just want to throw all the natural materials at it. You see, natural materials don't go at problems with a sledgehammer. They tend to be slower and you have to work a lot harder, but the reward is you have no side effects from the natural materials and natural approach.
But it sounds like a good general maintenance approach.
Absolutely.
To keep, if you're going up this ramp to get further infected, and you go up this ramp of general maintenance and doing those little things,
yes,
where you kind of stave off, you break even, and you don't even have an infection by the time you finish maintenance.
That's right. That's the idea.
So you kind of meet in the middle. And then, of course, if it's too much, you can go get your steroids and your stuff that from the dental
absolutely
specialists that help you.
Well, this is Jerry.
I'm Gerald.
And we always look forward to being with you. I'll have Gerald back on with us on several more occasions. He's offered to come and talk with us. We appreciate all the comments that you're leaving. I'm really humbled by some of the wonderful words you have for our effort. And if you like what we're doing, please hit the like button. Also, we have a subscribe that works really well. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes during the videos, we have across the top, we have links that will give you more information. So until next time, be well.